welcome back. Tonight, I have 3 scary stories for you. Stories you won't soon forget. Lock your doors, turn off the lights, and listen carefully. It was one of those quiet nights when everything felt still, and I was home alone in my apartment. I'm Sarah, 28, and I've always enjoyed my solitude until that night. I had gone to sleep around midnight, the apartment silent save for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Suddenly, I woke up at about 3 a.m. to a faint noise, a soft tapping sound coming from the living room. My heart fluttered with unease, but I told myself it was nothing, perhaps the wind or a loose window. I got up slowly, trying to stay calm, and grabbed my phone to turn on the flashlight. As I stepped into the living room, the tapping stopped. I looked around. Nothing seemed out of place. Then I heard it again. This time, a faint whisper, just on the edge of hearing, behind my sofa. Freezing, I shined my flashlight behind it. To my shock, I saw nothing but darkness. I holed up in my bedroom with the door locked and the phone ready to dial 911. I stayed awake all night, trembling from fear. The next morning, I went to inspect the apartment. Everything was exactly where I left it. No signs of forced entry or intrusion. But I found a small muddy footprint pressed against the back door. I never heard anyone enter or leave, and the footprint was tiny. Someone my size. To this day, I don't know who or what was in my apartment that night. The scariest part, I woke up with a faint scratch on my arm, like someone had touched me. I live alone, or so I thought. My name is Mike, and I'm 34. I thought I was used to being alone at night, especially during my early morning shifts. But one lonesome night, around 2 a.m., I felt an odd void, like someone watching me. I was sitting in my living room, eyes glued to the TV, when I felt a sudden drop in temperature. The room seemed to grow colder, and I could sense a presence. I looked around and saw nothing out of place until I noticed the window blinds gently swaying, although no wind was blowing outside. I decided to be cautious, telling myself it was just my imagination. That's when I heard a faint voice whisper, "Help me," coming from directly behind me. My blood ran cold. I spun around, but there was nothing. No one. Everything appeared normal. I shrugged it off, convinced I was hallucinating, and went back to my couch. But then I saw it, a shadow flickering at the edge of my vision near the window. When I looked directly, nothing was there. Later, after I returned to bed, I kept hearing noises, soft footsteps pacing just outside my apartment. I had no idea why I kept feeling watched. The next day, I checked the building's security footage, but oddly enough, it had been cut at that exact time the voice had spoken, and the shadow appeared. What haunts me most? I found a strange, tiny scratch on the back of my neck, like something had touched me from behind. I live alone, but I am certain I wasn't. Hi, I'm Lily, 22. I never believed in scary stories until I spent a night completely alone at my friend's cabin. She had gone home, leaving me there for the weekend. Everything seemed normal as I settled in, but around midnight, I started feeling uneasy. Suddenly, I received a text message from my friend saying, "Come outside." I found it strange because she was still in town. Unsure but curious, I went outside into the dark woods. To my surprise, I saw her silhouette waving at me from a distance. When I called out her name, she turned and started walking toward me. As she drew closer, I realized it wasn't her. The figure's face was wrong, distorted with hollow eyes. I froze, unsure if I was imagining things. Then, out of nowhere, she vanished into thin air. I ran back inside, locking the doors, and tried to call her, but her number was cut off. The next morning, I searched the woods for any sign of her, but nothing. I finally received a call from her. She was in town, safe, but she had no memory of being there that night. Then I noticed a tiny bruise on my arm where I had been poked, like a needle been pushed into my skin. I've never forgotten that night. I was alone, but something had been with me. My name is Jeff, 40, and I recently moved into an old house by myself. The place had a charm, but strange things started happening after a few weeks. At night, I would hear faint whispers as if someone was standing just outside my bedroom wall. One evening, determined to find the source, I took a sledgehammer to a section of the wall. Behind it, I found nothing but a small, dusty cavity and a strange, carved symbol. I thought perhaps an old prank or ritual gone wrong. As I cleaned the debris, I found a tiny metallic chip, something like a listening device. Freaked out, I contacted the police. They examined the chip and told me it was an audio bug, planted by someone from a long-ago owner who perhaps wanted to spy. When I was about to leave the house, I noticed a thin wire running beneath the floorboards. Someone had been secretly listening to me, my every move. But the real shock? The house was declared empty when I bought it, but I found evidence that someone had been living there for years, unseen. I was supposed to be alone, but I was constantly being watched. I am Emma, 19, and I always felt comfortable knowing my house was quiet when I was alone. But one night, I looked into my mirror while brushing my hair and saw someone behind me. Startled, I turned around. Nothing, just the empty room. Over the next few days, I repeatedly saw a figure reflected in the mirror. Once, I was brushing my teeth when I saw a face behind my shoulder, only to turn and find nobody there. I began avoiding the mirror altogether, but something drew me back each time. One night, I dared to look again. This time, I saw a young girl's face pressed close against the mirror, smiling warmly. As I reached out to touch her reflection, she suddenly looked serious and motioned toward the window. I looked outside and saw a figure retreating into the darkness, a girl I'd never seen before. The next morning, I researched my house's history and discovered that years ago, a young girl had mysteriously disappeared from this neighborhood. The most chilling part? I later found a small old photo tucked behind the mirror of that girl, smiling, with a date noted on the back, the day she vanished. If you enjoyed these true scary stories, consider subscribing for more real horror experiences, and don't forget to stay alert, because the next story might just happen to you.